some others will join us shortly, but I think we have enough to get started. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I am pleased to call to order this 25th regular meeting of the Inter-American Council for Integral Development, CIDI, and submit for your consideration the draft order of business document CIDI/OD25/13 Rev 1, which includes a new item in the agenda included at the request of the delegation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. If there are no comments, the draft order of business is approved. Item 2. Colleagues, the dialogue we will have here today is of particular importance as it will continue to contribute to shape our thoughts on the role of the OAS, what the role of the OAS should play in development, particularly in the area of human development, education, and capacity building. The area of human development is one of the areas in which the OAS has built tremendous experience and expertise over the years. I dare say that scattered throughout this hemisphere, and perhaps even present among our delegations, are OAS fellows who have benefited from academic programs, vocational training, or favorable loans offered through the OAS. I myself haven't benefited, but I can tell you that my Minister of Foreign Affairs is a recipient. Enhancing individual and institutional capacities in our member states is at the core of the OAS development programmatic approach. Even though the OAS is comprised of countries of different sizes and with different needs at any given point in time, both developing and developed countries alike can agree on the importance of investing in human capacity. And I can say that from the point of view of Barbados, we've achieved what we have for three reasons. It's education, education, and education. The question, therefore, as I see it, is not whether the OAS should remain involved in this area in which it has established its own niche. Rather, the questions we must ask ourselves should be how can the OAS position itself to better serve the needs of member states? Has OAS programming adapted itself appropriately to respond to an evolving hemispheric and global environment, and what it can do better? To trigger this discussion, we have invited two very special guests that have, through their own institutions, have worked on the kinds of issues that we're discussing here today. I'm very pleased to welcome Ms. Sylvia Singer, Executive Director of Economic Interactive Museum of Mexico, and Mr. Francisco Marmolejo, Lead Tertiary Education Specialist and Coordinator in the Network of Higher Education Specialists from the World Bank, to this CIDI meeting. Let me start this session by introducing Mr. Marmolejo. Mr. Marmolejo has a long-standing career in higher education. Before joining the World Bank, he served as founding executive director of the Consortium for North America Higher Education Collaboration, a network of more than 160 higher education institutions and organizations, primarily from Canada, the US, and Mexico. At the University of Arizona, he served as affiliated researcher at the Center for the Study of Higher Education and affiliate faculty at the Center for Latin American Studies, giving him the opportunity to work with the higher education institutions around the Americas, understanding their policies and practices, while building bridges and cooperation agreements through networks and joint work. He now leads the World Bank's tertiary education programming. What I'd like to do actually suggests that we hear from the three speakers today, and then afterwards we're getting into a discussion from the members. So with that, Mr. Marmolejo, let me welcome you once again and offer you the floor. The floor is yours.
Mr. President and distinguished Secretary General of the organization, it's an honor to be here, and distinguished members of the different countries which are members of the organization. It is an honor to be here to talk about the importance of investing in human capital and what are the implications for development. If you don't mind, I will switch from Spanglish to Spanish, porque es mi idioma original, aunque la presentación está hecha sobre todo en inglés. Y bueno, la pregunta básica es si el futuro es algo que hay que adivinar o que hay que algo extrapolar o si es algo que hay que construir. Y a mí me da la impresión de que el futuro nos ha alcanzado. Vivimos en una nueva realidad que, nos guste o no, es una realidad que tenemos que entender desde una perspectiva diferente, en un mundo que está crecientemente interconectado, crecientemente entrelazado, donde eventos que suceden en un lugar no necesariamente tienen implicaciones en ese lugar, pero también en otros. Y es una realidad que tenemos que aprender a ver con lentes diferentes. Y en ese sentido es importante tratar de pensar fuera de lo convencional. ¿Quién nos dijo que el norte estaba en el norte o que el sur estaba en el sur? Todo depende desde dónde estemos observando esa realidad. Y en ese sentido me parece que esta reflexión que ustedes tienen sobre la importancia de la inversión en capital humano es tan significativa para el contexto del continente americano. En la medida en que hemos entrado en una economía crecientemente globalizada, la educación se convierte cada vez más en un elemento fundamental que es el centro del debate, de la decisión de cuáles son los países que en el futuro lograrán tener mejores condiciones o no. Debemos reconocer que vivimos en un mundo que ha crecido muy rápido en los últimos años. De hecho, hemos experimentado la etapa de crecimiento más rápida en la historia de la humanidad, pero también, desafortunadamente, la etapa de crecimiento más desigual en la historia de la humanidad. De hecho, si comparamos cómo ha crecido el mundo cómo crecerá el mundo en los próximos años, es claro ver que el mundo en los países desarrollados se va a hacer más pequeño. Tan es así que hoy en día la venta de pañales para adultos en Italia, por ejemplo, es mayor que la venta de pañales para niños. Y el mundo donde realmente va a crecer es donde hay menos recursos, es también donde hay más juventud. Así que tenemos que aprender a ver el mundo con lentes diferentes desde la perspectiva de dónde se va a explicar el crecimiento. Si vemos las cifras de cómo se ha comportado la pobreza en los últimos años, sabemos, buenas noticias, que hay menos pobres en el mundo, pero aún así sigue habiendo muchos pobres. Más de 1 billón de personas en el mundo que viven con menos de $1.25 al día. Y ellos se encuentran en muchos países, incluso se encuentran cerca de casa, se encuentran enfrente del Banco Mundial. Me llama la atención cuando yo camino hacia el Banco Mundial que veo personas que viven en condiciones de extrema pobreza, inclusive en este país. Y por otra parte, también sabemos que en la medida en la que se ha logrado que mayor número de personas salgan del círculo de pobreza extrema, en esta misma medida ellos estarán demandando mejores servicios, mejor salud, mejores condiciones de trabajo y sobre todo mejor educación. De tal suerte que en el continente americano existe un importante bono demográfico del cual no tengo que convencerlos a ustedes porque ustedes lo saben perfectamente. Sabemos que este bono demográfico es un bono que tampoco va a durar muchísimos años, porque en la medida en que las sociedades del continente americano se han ido envejeciendo y en la medida en que se han incrementado las posibilidades de esperanza de vida de las personas, en esa misma medida ese bono demográfico que tiene el continente americano es un bono que se va haciendo pequeño para los próximos años. Pero si vemos esto en el contexto regional, bien sabemos que sobre todo la región de América Latina va a representar el más importante componente del bono demográfico global de todo el continente americano de los próximos años. Y este bono demográfico de juventud, de niñez del día de hoy, es un gran activo para el futuro, pero puede convertirse en un gran pasivo para el futuro si no hay un esfuerzo significativo para incrementar las condiciones de educación de este importante segmento de la población del futuro. Como decía, la tasa de dependencia de adultos hacia personas en edad productiva va a seguir creciendo en los próximos años y naturalmente que también esto va a afectar al continente americano. De tal suerte que tenemos que hacer esfuerzos significativos para que las próximas generaciones tengan mejores condiciones de vida. Por eso a mí me gusta mucho letrero que está en la oficina de la pediatra de mis hijos, porque naturalmente que tenemos que preocuparnos por un futuro mejor para ellos, porque entre otras cosas eso es lo que va a determinar el futuro de nosotros como adultos. La región del continente americano, lo sabemos, es una región bastante significativa en el contexto mundial. 28% de la superficie de la Tierra, 859 millones de habitantes, que representan más o menos el 13% del mundo. 28% de la población es joven en comparación con otras regiones del mundo. Y nuevamente, insisto, este es un gran activo regional. Y en la medida en que vivimos en un mundo crecientemente basado en el conocimiento, con una economía global altamente competitiva, basada cada vez más en la tecnología, cambiando constantemente y sobre todo la economía del conocimiento, ahí es donde justo tenemos que definir de qué manera como región haremos esfuerzos más significativos para montar la región en esta economía del conocimiento. Es una economía global, pero decía yo, con crecientes inequidades. Y ya lo sabemos, si vemos el índice Gini de desigualdad social, sabemos que, por ejemplo, la región de América Latina es la región más desigual del mundo. Y a pesar del crecimiento que ha habido en los últimos años, sigue habiendo barreras significativas en cuanto a reducir esta brecha de inequidad. De hecho, si ustedes pueden ver en esta gráfica, también el crecimiento económico, particularmente de América Latina y el Caribe, ha sido un crecimiento que se ha detenido precisamente en función de la importancia de la educación y de la educación superior. Así que esa es una realidad regional, un mundo en donde hay distintas realidades y estas realidades tenemos que reconocerlas, tenemos que ponerlas sobre la mesa, porque es este mundo precisamente el que estaremos heredando a nuestros hijos. Son realidades que son muy distantes y a veces no tan distantes. Esta es una fotografía de una ciudad de América Latina en donde pueden observar ustedes mundos muy diferentes justo frente uno delante del otro. Y en un mundo que está crecientemente conectado, pues como decía Dominique Moissy, el problema no es que haya pobres, sino que además los pobres saben cómo viven los ricos y no les gusta. Y los ricos saben cómo viven los pobres y se preocupan por ver precisamente que hay condiciones de inequidad. Si a esto le agregamos el tema de un mundo crecientemente influenciado por la tecnología, en donde hay un proceso de masificación de la tecnología, pero donde desafortunadamente sigue habiendo asimetrías significativas, pues naturalmente que este es otro elemento que también tendrá una importancia en la definición del futuro que queremos para la región del continente americano. En la medida en que estamos en un mundo crecientemente interconectado y tecnologizado, hay incluso una migración significativa en cuanto a las habilidades requeridas de la fuerza de trabajo de la sociedad del conocimiento, como ustedes pueden ver en esta gráfica, en donde el pensamiento experto tiene cada vez mayor importancia en la conformación de la fuerza laboral. De tal suerte que hay, pues, una evidente conexión entre educación, desarrollo económico y desarrollo social. Veamos rápidamente desde el punto de vista de los retornos privados. ¿Qué es lo que nos dice la evidencia científica? Primero, que los beneficios de la educación, ya lo sabemos, representan mayores tasas de empleabilidad y mayores ingresos para los individuos. Vean ustedes las cifras de la OCDE, claramente lo demuestran. Entre más estudia una persona, más posibilidades tiene de tener mayores ingresos como individuo. Recientes estudios que ha hecho el Banco Mundial lo demuestran también. El crecimiento promedio de retornos en función de los números de años de estudio de las personas es de aproximadamente 10.4%. Los retornos para la inversión por la educación son más altos en algunas regiones del mundo, particularmente la región del Subsaharan y también la región de América Latina y el Caribe. Y los retornos a la inversión de las personas son mucho más altos en el nivel de educación superior. O sea, la evidencia es muy clara. Entre más estudia una persona, más retorno va a tener como individuo en su inversión individual y, por supuesto, eso va a representar también un mayor retorno social. Y esto es algo que se ha exacerbado o acelerado en los últimos años. Ustedes pueden observar la diferencia entre crecimientos de ingreso en la era industrial versus la era de la información, y cómo en la era de la información, si ha habido incrementos significativos, ha sido precisamente en el lado de personas que tienen mayor educación. De hecho, las personas con menor educación, en términos netos, han tenido un decremento en sus propios ingresos. Luego tenemos el elemento de los retornos a las sociedades. Y nuevamente la evidencia demuestra claramente que el conocimiento es un factor clave que explica la diferencia entre pobreza y riqueza entre los países. Ustedes pueden ver en este comparado entre Corea del Sur y Ghana. Entonces, mayor productividad, mayor crecimiento económico para los países están asociados con mayor educación. Ustedes vean el caso, por ejemplo, de Corea del Sur, en un país que en los años 60 estaba por debajo de todos los países de América Latina en nivel de crecimiento y de riqueza económica, y que por una decisión estratégica de hacer una inversión sustantiva en la educación de manera consistente, ha logrado escalar para convertirse en uno de los países punta de logro educativo dentro de los países de la OCDE. Y naturalmente que en el mundo globalizado en el que vivimos, la ventaja comparativa de las regiones puede estar asociada precisamente con crecimiento y con desarrollo. Sabemos que vivimos en una sociedad global, sabemos que vivimos en una sociedad móvil, en donde no nada más los empleos, sino también las personas migran de un lugar a otro. Esto lo voy a brincar para poder llegar al punto final de mi argumentación. Así que para ser competitivos globalmente, los países necesitan invertir en sus sistemas de innovación, tanto en el ámbito nacional como en el ámbito regional. Y también las instituciones de educación superior tienen un papel fundamental para ser actores en esta transición que hay que hacer para la región. Y obviamente que se necesitan cambios a nivel nacional, pero también se necesitan cambios a nivel institucional, y las instituciones de educación superior necesitan meterse de lleno en esta dinámica. De lo contrario, estarán precisamente haciendo flaco favor a las necesidades de nuestra región. Así que a nivel de educación superior hay una pregunta fundamental. Sabemos que las instituciones de educación superior se ven a sí mismas como instituciones localizadas en sus regiones, pero la pregunta es: ¿de qué manera están contribuyendo al desarrollo de sus regiones? Y esta es una pregunta que no siempre las instituciones tienen capacidad de responder. Conectar a las instituciones de educación superior con el desarrollo regional y con las agendas del desarrollo regional es algo que se está presentando en todo el mundo. Varios estudios de la OCDE y del Banco Mundial han estado analizando regiones específicas en donde se observa de qué manera las instituciones logran integrarse mejor con el sector empresarial, con el sector gubernamental, con los exalumnos de las instituciones, con la estrategia de innovación, y queda muy claro que esas regiones están precisamente logrando dar este brinco. A nivel mundial, ya sabemos que más personas están teniendo acceso a la educación superior. Y estas son buenas noticias. Desafortunadamente, la educación superior sigue siendo un privilegio de unos cuantos. Somos muy pocos todavía los privilegiados con la oportunidad de la educación superior. Si vemos la región del continente americano, fuera de Estados Unidos y Canadá, es obvio que hay un importante rezago en cuanto al stock de profesionistas, de personas con estudios superiores con respecto a otras partes del mundo. Esta gráfica, por ejemplo, muestra el comparado de Canadá, Estados Unidos, México, Chile, la media de la OCDE, y claramente muestra precisamente estos rezagos. Y este crecimiento, aunque se ha dado a nivel mundial, nuevamente la parte del continente americano que tiene que ver con América Latina y el Caribe se ha quedado por debajo de crecimientos significativos, de tal suerte que nuevamente este activo demográfico que tenemos puede ser un lamentable pasivo para el futuro. Ustedes pueden ver que ha habido un esfuerzo significativo de los gobiernos para incrementar la matrícula de la educación superior en América Latina, pero aún así este es un crecimiento que todavía tiene pasivos significativos. Y obviamente en esto también ha contribuido mucho la participación del sector privado en la educación superior, de tal suerte que hoy hay toda una industria global de la educación. El caso brasileño es un caso bastante significativo, en donde ustedes saben que hoy el 80% de la matrícula de la educación superior es aportado por instituciones privadas. Pero las tasas de acceso a la educación superior siguen teniendo rezagos significativos con respecto al resto del mundo. Ustedes pueden ver en el círculo rojo la mayor parte de los países de América Latina y del Caribe, y luego en la parte de extrema superior el caso de Canadá y los Estados Unidos como elementos bastante significativos de diferencia. De tal suerte que habrá una creciente presión por el acceso a la educación superior en el continente americano, pero solamente por los próximos 15 años. Hoy en día, el problema que están enfrentando universidades en Japón o en Armenia, que están teniendo que decidir qué universidades cerrar por falta de alumnos, no es un problema del continente americano, pero va a ser un problema en los próximos años, de tal suerte que la ventana de oportunidad para hacer esfuerzos más significativos en inversión de capital humano en el continente americano es una ventana que se va cerrando poco a poco. Hay poca inversión en la educación superior en el continente americano. El gasto por estudiante en educación superior es un gasto que se ha hecho más pequeño. No sé qué sucedió aquí con la presentación. No sé si me están diciendo que me calle o qué. Pero aquí estoy viendo... ¿Sí? ¿Sigue? Perfecto. Hay poca inversión también en investigación y desarrollo. Nuevamente, las cifras que yo presento aquí y que dejaré para ustedes para posterior consulta muestran precisamente que hay poca inversión en investigación y desarrollo, que hay una alta correlación entre inversión en investigación y desarrollo e ingreso per cápita de los países. Ustedes pueden observar el extremo de Finlandia, Japón, Corea del Sur y particularmente para el caso de América Latina, Chile y México en la parte de abajo de la curva. En términos de producción de conocimiento, la simetría ahí está, de las 47,000 familias de patentes a nivel mundial. Sabemos que, nuevamente, fuera de Estados Unidos y Canadá, el resto del continente americano tiene una escasa producción científica. Así que el reto que tenemos en América Latina es cómo propiciar un ritmo de crecimiento que rompa el patrón de evolución convencional. Y la fórmula, ya lo sabemos, es más y mejor educación. Y obviamente que tenemos dilemas significativos. Podemos crecer inercialmente, podemos incrementar con una gran irresponsabilidad asientos universitarios sin mayor respaldo, podemos diversificar institucionalmente y también podemos hacer más eficientes nuestros sistemas de educación superior y, en este sentido, de formación de capital humano. Por otra parte, también sabemos que tenemos que hacer mayor énfasis no nada más en el tema de los empleos y las habilidades, sino también en el tema de formación de ciudadanos para el futuro. Porque, como decía Lobkowicz, si la universidad renuncia a su tarea formadora, corre el riesgo de crear bárbaros científicamente competentes, que es el tipo más peligroso que hay de seres humanos. Sabemos que hay barreras significativas para el involucramiento de la educación superior en el desarrollo regional. Sabemos que somos expertos en la educación superior en el arte de la ambigüedad, en esperar que las cosas cambien aunque seguimos haciendo lo mismo. Somos expertos, además, en echarle la culpa a otros acerca de los problemas que nosotros mismos estamos produciendo. Sabemos que la educación superior tiene importantes, limitadas conexiones con actores alrededor de la misma que tiene que mejorar, que sabemos también que tiene que mejorar la vinculación entre las propias instituciones de educación superior, y todo esto implica que tenemos que buscar nuevos paradigmas. Sabemos que no hay fórmulas mágicas. Lo que puede funcionar en un caso puede ser que no funcione en otro caso. El contexto es fundamental, especialmente considerando que la educación superior en el continente americano es extremadamente diversa y tiene una enorme riqueza por su diversidad. Y obviamente que soluciones sencillas no siempre son las mejores, porque sabemos que la realidad es compleja. Así que hay recomendaciones que existen para los gobiernos, no me referiré a ellas de manera específica, pero hay recomendaciones que vale la pena tomar en consideración en términos de tomar más en serio la agenda de la educación con su conexión en el desarrollo regional, también para las instituciones de educación superior, para las autoridades regionales e inclusive también para el sector empleador. Y obviamente que hay bastante espacio y necesidad de una mayor y mejor colaboración. En esfuerzos previos donde yo estoy involucrado en colaboración con la Organización de Estados Americanos desde el CONAEC, hemos precisamente vinculado la importancia de la colaboración consorcial con entidades como lo que hace la Organización de Estados Americanos. Y hay muchos tipos de colaboración. La colaboración que realmente no nos lleva a gran cosa, la colaboración en donde no estamos de acuerdo, la colaboración en donde solamente queremos jalar para un lado, pero sabemos que si todos buscamos un rumbo compartido, la contribución, por pequeña que cada uno de nosotros pueda hacer, puede probablemente ser mucho más significativa de lo que nosotros podamos considerar. Tenemos que invertir en el capital humano. Esto implica cambiar el paradigma de ser visto como solamente una buena idea, como un problema de otros, como algo poco práctico, marginal y como una prioridad para el mañana, sino que tenemos que verlo como una necesidad crítica, una herramienta de supervivencia, algo altamente práctico, benéfico y sobre todo una prioridad no para el mañana ni para el día de hoy, sino probablemente una prioridad para el ayer. Y vale la pena que reconozcamos lo que somos y lo que nos gustaría ser. Y la pregunta básica es ¿qué queremos ser? Si queremos ser actores o solamente testigos de esto. El futuro ni se adivina ni se extrapola. El futuro se construye con las acciones que uno haga el día de hoy. Y termino con dos citas. Albert Einstein, que decía que los imperios del futuro serían los imperios del conocimiento, no serían los imperios de ni siquiera de los recursos naturales o de los grandes monumentos, sino los imperios del conocimiento. Y también Charles Darwin, que decía que no son los más fuertes, ni siquiera los más inteligentes, los que sobreviven, sino los que tienen mejor capacidad de adaptarse a un cambio del cual ni siquiera sabemos cómo es ni cómo se presenta. Paul Valéry también dijo que el futuro y lo que nos asusta del futuro es que ya no es lo que solía ser. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aloheyo, and your presentation. And we will, of course, continue with the cooperation with the World Bank. It is interesting to see the effectiveness of partnerships and networks in providing a platform to link experts from international practitioners to support ongoing research for the regular updating and refining of benchmarking tools and the promotion of knowledge sharing. The ability to create effective and engaged networks that bring people, ideas, and knowledge together is an asset of multilateral organizations as they support countries improve their institutions and provide a platform to share best practices and knowledge. We continue now with the presentation of Ms. Sylvia Singer. Ms. Singer is an innovator and an educator who currently leads the Economic Interactive Museum of Mexico, which is one of a kind institution that using everyday language and hands-on exhibits explains everyday life in economic terms. Her expertise and experience in utilizing technology and innovation to make education accessible to a broad audience and what this has meant for her institution and those who have benefited from its programming. Ms. Singer, you have the floor. Thank you.
Very much. Secretario General José Miguel Insulza, muchas gracias por brindarme esta oportunidad. Mr. John Bailey, President and Ambassador from Barbados, thank you very much. I also want to thank very specially Ms. Sherry Tross, Secretary Executive for Integral Development, and Mrs. Maria Levens, Dr. Levens, Director of the Department of Human Development, Education and Culture. And very especially I would like to thank the ambassador of my country for being here, Joel Hernández García. Thank you so much. And all of you, integrantes permanentes, embajadores y representantes de los diferentes países. I feel very honored about having the opportunity of being this morning here with you and presenting what the Interactive Museum of Economics is doing in Mexico City and what might be a possibility for working together with the OAS. So, can we start así? Sí, perfecto. Okay. Yes, thank you very much. It's perfect. Thank you very much. So, MIDE, it's a very strange thing, and I want to explain briefly what it is all about. I know it sounds terribly boring and not exciting at all, and that's what I thought when the Banco Central offered me the job to develop and create this institution, this educational institution. I've been a museum professional for almost 30 years, and at the time being it was almost 20 years, and when they offered me the job, I thought, I really have bad luck. We always search for interesting projects to develop, but a museum about economics, who is going to attend such a thing? And there was no reference around the world about it, and no possibility of consulting other colleagues. How have you done this? Who's your target audience? What makes them come? What makes it really exciting to be in an interactive museum about economics? But we started working from the perspective of a science museum, and we started developing a museum that was going to be devoted precisely to education. And I used the only methodology I knew, which was to develop a science center or a science museum or a natural history museum. And by using the methodology of science, we achieved what we have today. The first interactive museum about economics in the world, which is already been in the process of being replicated in other countries. France is working on it. Italy just opened their savings museum. You have a Museum of American Finance, which opened a few years ago in New York. Ecuador is working with us in order to develop their own experience, and we are very thankful for having this opportunity. And other experiences that are coming after MIDE. So we are a museum that is devoted to the communication of economics and finances and sustainability. We were founded by the Banco Central, Banco de Mexico, and we are located in a magnificent 18th century building downtown Mexico City. Banco de Mexico paid for the foundation of the museum and gave the building to a trust as part of their patrimony. But since we opened to the public 6 years ago, we operate totally independent as a private museum. We have an endowment that provides for, I don't know, between 20 and 25% of what is needed to operate, but the rest has to be funded by our own work. So our mission is to allow our visitors to discover that economy is in all their acts in their daily lives, and to provide them with experiences that allow them to construct an integral vision of the economic, the social, and the environmental processes in order to get to an idea of what sustainability might be. To understand that their well-being is linked to understanding how this part of the world works, and that this is essential in these days. We are really striving to help education to achieve citizens that are critical in their thinking and participative as well. So we've been working in education all this time, and for us, we have certain ideas about education that I think are absolutely pertinent to this meeting and important to discuss with you. We have designed and implemented visitor experiences that promote certain educational ideas. So we are not about showing objects or a playground. We are about providing experiences that allow people to understand their world better. We provide lifelong learning experiences that include innovation and interactivity. We use the language that young people use. We strive to provide, we try to obtain a result in which, by their experience, our visitors will be learning by discovery. They make their own research. They establish dialogue with the museum, with the interactives, but also, and very importantly, with other visitors. And in this way, they construct meaning. We encourage the development of critical thinking amongst our visitors. So we think that these are values that are essential precisely after listening to what we just heard. The museum shows the process and provides the necessary information which is given at different levels. But afterwards, when the visitor is interacting, they have the last word. This means that we don't give them opinions. We abandon the authority position that is normally held by a museum, and that is natural. If you're showing pieces and you say, this is the Mona Lisa, this is the Mona Lisa, and there's no discussion about what is the painting you're looking at. But if you're showing a process, a social process, if you're showing a phenomenon and you give the necessary data to understand the phenomenon, you don't need to tell them if this is good or bad or how they have to look at this kind of realities. People have their own criteria. And they come to the museum with previous experiences. They don't come in blank. So we use those previous experiences to build new ideas, new consensus. So we think this is a very important part of how we work. We're more than a museum. We have an educational forum that allows us to go in depth in many of the topics. We have links to universities. We develop our own programs. And in this way, we provide, I'm going back one, I lost it. I'm sorry. We provide courses, training for teachers, for people who come to the museum. We have a very wide cultural offer in the museum that goes beyond the exhibit halls. And we share this knowledge with other institutions. And very briefly, a few photos just for you to get an idea of the really wonderful venue in which we are, which is a magnificent opportunity because it provides a big sense of surprise. And we have used this building in order to get visitors to walk around it, to know it in terms of also of the heritage that the building brings with itself. We have done adaptations that are contemporary and that allow us to provide with all this interactivity and new experiences. We have used innovation and high-tech as a tool for communicating successfully with our audiences. The innovative educational design, which is mainly expressed as activities, interactives, labels, and others, allow us to communicate the basic concepts of all these science considered distant to regular public. You can see here our main patio with our high-tech projection devices, which are really very interesting. We opened a little more than 6 years ago, and we have had more than 1,200,000 visitors. Last year, we increased in 23% our visitors by opening an exhibit hall about sustainable development. But what is more interesting about our visitors is that 85% of them range between 15 and 25 years old. And this is really different from other museums. And I know you are not museum professionals, but I can tell you that we are breaking a very hard paradigm, which is that interactive museums are for children. And if you have children, you know that if you listen about people ask me, your museum is interactive, I'll bring my 2-year-old kid or my 5-year-old kid. And I reply, you may bring them, they will have fun, but this place is for youngsters. And this is something that makes us very proud, because the possibility of having this population between 15 and 25 years old with us allows us to deliver our message to people who really need it, because they are at the moment in their lives when they need to change and they need to think about themselves in a different way. We are very proud to have received many distinctions, and as some friends tell me, even one Mexican very important distinction, not just international ones, which is the Miguel Covarrubias Award for the best museum opened in the 2006. And I am very proud that the National Institute of Anthropology and History recognized that a museum of this style has the merit to get this kind of awards. And we have also been awarded by the Inter-American Bank for our financial education programs. So now I would like to get the opportunity, if you help me please by double-clicking this. No. Sí funciona directamente. No, te pido que no lo hagas así. Ahí, y doble clic encima de lo negro. Gracias. Muchas gracias. No, ya no le des flecha para atrás, por favor. No. Puedes darle... A ver, yo lo hago.
Es que está bloqueado por el sistema, por eso no tengo que entrar. Puedes entrar.
¿Puedes poner la primera película, por favor? Esa, gracias. These are some, I'm going to present to you a very brief video. This is just a 3-minute video. It is about just images of how the museum looks, because I think how the museum looks is very important to realize. Can you lower the volume? Very good. Thank you very much. Our audiences, we have volunteers, which is not very... it's not a common thing in Mexico, but you can see the kind of audience that we receive, the kind of experiences, contrasting experiences that are designed for very different kinds of public and different kinds of audiences. We have an interesting program in which we also acknowledge the value of the heritage and the history that we are about the museum, the building where we are located. We have 4 floors of exhibits, and this is our floor for sustainable development. And as you can see, and you will see, I would like you to observe how people are having conversations and not just playing with specific interactives. We have very moments of lots of people in there with a lot of energy, contagious energy. People can work and play together regardless of their age. You have smaller kids, younger people, you have all sorts. We have activities that are in-depth with workshops where people explore more in-depth some concepts, and others that are just for going around and getting a little information. We talk about money, but we just talk about money when we need to. The Interactive Museum of Economics is about decision making, because so the economists have explained to me, economy is the science of decision making. And these are some images from our educational forum, and this is a group of teachers getting a diploma degree on teaching economy at a basic level. And you must know that in Mexico we do not have economics or finances as part of the curricula, and this is why it is important that MIDE is there trying to back up any initiative in these terms. So it's curious to see all these young people, but not children, playing with things that are supposed to be introduced to the idea of what would be the knowledge economy for them. These diagrams are showing you a little of what is the purpose behind these kind of activities. The three ideas at the front are, let's say, the first things we need. We need a good educational level, we need health and nutrition, and we need to be able to get information in a contemporary way. We need to get access to information. If we can do that, if people can do that, if youngsters can do that, they will have ideas. We have ideas. If these ideas are nurtured by education, then we can develop science and technology, and that will lead us to innovation. If we can do this, then the person can reflect how to apply these ideas into their daily situation. So if I am a youngster and I can reflect on my daily life, understand that I can create ideas and I can make decisions, then one of my first decisions is, what am I going to study? What kind of human capital I want to be? How can I invest in being a better person and collaborate in a better way? We think that this kind of exhibition, this kind of activities can be based on the idea of lifelong learning beyond the classroom, and that this is education and innovation and the use of technology exactly what makes it possible. Because knowledge changes the life of people, communities, and after all, it changes society. So these are some examples, but I really want to thank you for listening to us. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Ms. Singer, for your rather illustrative presentation. And let's now put these two interesting presentations in the context of our work at the OAS. Much of the work that we carry out to strengthen institutions in member states includes a strong investment in human capital through the education and training programs that the OAS offers. Through their seminars, workshops, networks, and scholarships, the OAS contributes to a better trained and equipped workforce in the Americas, capable of innovating and adapting to a changing and evolving environment, as well as better equipped to be competitive and contribute to a global economy. To inform us on these efforts, I'm pleased to offer the floor to Ms. Maria Levens, Director of the Office of Human Development, Education and Culture. Ms. Levens, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today about the human development programs of the OAS. And I do see this as an opportunity to reach out to you to let you know what we are doing. You have heard our colleague from the World Bank, Francisco Marmolejo, talk convincingly about the importance of investing in education for development of a country. Invest early, invest smartly, invest for all. That is what he says in every email that he sends us, and we agree with him. We will keep on collaborating with the World Bank. Our second speaker, Sylvia Springer, director from MIDE, has shown how we also learn outside the classroom, how knowledge can be applied and developed and made available to everyone in a society in a way that engages rich and poor, rural and urban, young and old. It's about inclusion, and we will collaborate to share this best practice in other member states. We are working with the director of MIDE on a cooperation agreement on this. You, the member states, recognized the importance of narrowing the digital divide through mandates coming from the summits. For their part, the ministers of education have sought to formulate policies to narrow the educational divide. These are all expressions of the knowledge divide, the divide between those who have access to knowledge and those who do not. The programs which human development manages fall within the framework of the issues covered by our two excellent speakers, the mandates of the summits and the ministers of education, and we are putting a human face on them. Most well known to you are all the many scholarship programs that we manage. Let us remember that beginning in the 1950s, the member states created the OAS scholarship and training programs to open access to quality higher education for the citizens of the Americas and to promote regional integration. The programs started with face-to-face graduate and professional development scholarships. The graduates of these programs were instrumental in contributing to the development of their countries. 60 years later, we have seen that the original scholarship program can benefit from taking advantage of new modalities for study, which have arisen with innovative approaches, comprehensive and integral approaches, and new technologies. These approaches are helping us to do better with or without technology. The new approaches are helping us to see the reality as it is and development as it is. They are integral in nature. New technologies can be used to address development through education for a larger audience. As an example, I like to demonstrate how professional development of teachers these days looks like when using innovative ways to do better what we always already did. This time, but now we can use technology. I like to give you an example of Pythagoras. In my days in school, we knew only the formula. It was very abstract. Nowadays, we know the formula, we simulate the formula, and apply the formula in real life. Let me show you just one example of how professional development looks like this day when you train teachers.
Pythagoras' theorem. Objective: to learn and understand the Pythagoras theorem. An important observation regarding the relationship between the sides of a right-angled triangle has been attributed to Pythagoras. This observation of the relationship is known as Pythagoras' theorem and is stated as, in a right-angled triangle, the square of the length of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of lengths of sides containing the right angle. Take a right-angled triangle ABC, where AB is equal to 3 units, BC is equal to 4 units, and angle ABC is equal to 90 degrees. Construct squares on 3 sides of this triangle and divide these squares into small squares of area 1 square unit each. Now, you can see, the number of small squares in square ABDE is 9. And in square BCGF, it is 16. Therefore, the total number of squares in square BCGF and square ABDE, which equals to the number of small squares in square ACIK, is 25. Similarly, if we take any other right-angled triangle, we will see that the area of the squares made on the hypotenuse of the right-angled triangle is equal to the sum of the squares of the areas made on the other 2 sides. This relation between the lengths of the sides of the right-angled triangle ABC can symbolically be written as AC square is equal to AB square plus BC square. Summary: we have learnt the Pythagoras theorem and also verified it.
When there is a fire in high-rise buildings, firefighters cannot use the regular stairs or lifts. They can reach some floors using ladders. In order to determine the necessary ladder length, they apply the Pythagoras theorem to estimate the height of the floor affected and the horizontal distance needed to keep the ladder in position. If the fire is on the 7th floor, we will take that as the height of the opposite side A. The adjacent side will be equal to 14 feet. We can now figure out the hypotenuse or diagonal distance needed to keep the ladder in position. In other words, how long should the ladder be to reach the 7th floor?
Pythagoras' theorem.
Yeah, can we have the mic at the table?
Okay. Thank you. This is professional development of teachers these days. It is comprehensive, innovative, it is interactive. It sometimes is a three-dimensional educational solution for learning science subjects covering K-12 curriculum, primary school, secondary school, high school. It ensures added value to the integration of ICT in education. Most important in professional development these days is the innovative approach. What you have seen is the use of open educational resources and in our daily work, the Educational Portal of the Americas introduced the open educational resources to the teachers and to institutions of higher educations. It's access to knowledge and how to use it and how to apply it in schools. Let me mention some benefits of this approach. It increases educational effectiveness by introducing and explaining difficult topics in science covering the K-12 spectrum. It equips teachers, especially the less well-trained teachers, with high-quality content, thus helps in explaining difficult concepts. It helps students in visualizing complex topics, resulting in better understanding and improving grade patterns. It allows the kids to repeat as often as they need. It leaves slow kids in their dignity because they may learn at their own pace. It adds value to a traditional classroom, teaching and learning environment. Most important, it makes education exciting and fun. It leaves behind a factor of, yes, I got it. Chair, whether there is connectivity or not, innovation in education is possible. Professional development of teachers teaches them to be creative in all circumstances. With popsicle sticks, drawing and coloring, we can also demonstrate the theorem of Pythagoras. But above all, we want them to teach the reality. The STEM approach is very helpful. Without going into in-depth, professional development helps teachers to bring together science, technology, engineering, and math, and whatever is important in life. It is our duty to make sure that in our professional development and in our academic programs, we pay attention to science and technology, engineering, and math. Scholarships can help to make sure that we are bridging the science gap, and our capacity strengthening programs are certainly helping in this area. Governments are very important and very instrumental. We have had the example of Korea, and let me tell you that Korea is developing very fast, but the government is investing. First of all, to get into the teacher training college in Korea, the competitiveness is very high. Only the best of the best are allowed in teacher training college. Secondly, they are the best paid government officials. They are paid better, much better than engineers. Third, they have a sabbatical year. That means they are studying all the time after a certain amount of years. And they can go on forward with telling you how they invest in teachers. Make a comparison in what we do in our countries when it comes to teachers. So it is not only about training, it is also about respecting and giving the teachers the position that they deserve. When we report about the thousands of citizens that are benefiting from our programs, I want you to know that professional development, whether on-site or online, through the educational portals of the Americas, or through ITEN, the Teachers Educators Network, through Virtual Educa, or through the capacity strengthening programs of my department, this is what we do, and this is what we do well. We are putting a human face to the mandates that you gave us. Member states are borrowing millions of dollars for innovation in education and integrating ICT in education. We often see them struggling with the execution of those dollars, and we are not surprised that the member states are approaching us to cooperate with them in the execution of their programs. And we are helpful, and we are glad to help. We in the OES understand our citizens, we understand their institutions, we are part of them, we have lived their lives too. Our families are still living in those countries. We are closely connected to what is happening in our countries here in the Americas, and we are more than committed than just lending a helping hand. We know how to cooperate with small economies. Yes, they also count and have a very special place in our programs. Chair, our programs are changing. They are changing every day because our environment is changing. The execution of programs requires from us adjustment to the reality. That is why the traditional scholarship program that started in the 50s looks different. And that's why many other scholarship programs than the traditional program arise. That's why the professional development programs look different, and why many other professional development programs than the traditional arise. The programs become more sustainable. Their funding is diversified, the responsibilities are shared, the risks are shared, and ownership and inclusion are now integral part of our programs. We, the Secretariat, do not have to do it alone. We, the Member States, do not have to do it alone. We have strong partners in everything we do. I'm not sure if we have the partnership list, but if we have, you can put it up, because we have strong partners. Partners in the private sector, governments, partners working, parents, working students, students who took a loan, universities, other international organizations, all kinds of partners. In the annexes of the report, you might find all the partners we have for all our programs. They are the reason why today we have a multi-million-dollar program and why it is sustainable. That is the reason we have reached more than 60,000 citizens with our programs. In 2012 alone, over 60,000 people benefited from the OES Human Development Programs through its many initiatives in innovation in education and access to quality education from early childhood development to higher education. A short list. Over 1,000 scholarships were awarded through the 5 scholarship programs. Traditional Academic Scholarship Program, Partnership Program for Education and Training, OES Professional Development Scholarship Program, OES Scholarship Program for Haiti, and the McLean Scholarship Program for Peruvian women. Close to 100 interest-free student loans granted via the Leo Rowe Fund. Over 30,000 benefited from the training and support of the Educational Portal of the Americas. Over 10,000 individuals trained via Virtual Educa. Over 6,000 individuals registered in the Teachers Network. Over 100 teachers, educators, and in-service teachers participated in online teacher training courses. More than 7,000 views the YouTube channel of ITEN. Over 1,000 educators trained through online courses of Inter-American Program on Education for Democratic Values and Practices. Over 10,000 people participated in the programs offered through the Armando Paz Project, building a culture of peace with youth in Central America through arts, media, and social dialogue. Over 4,000 participants in the early childhood programs and events. Moving from the 50s, when we started into the 21st century, it now is a result-based approach. There are many different ways to reach results, not just one. Chair, finally, we are not only committed in narrowing the education or digital divide, but narrowing the knowledge divide as well. With the mandate you gave us, we therefore will keep on helping to translate the knowledge that is out there for citizens and institutions so they can understand and use it in order to make a positive contribution to the development of their societies. We need to move from consumers of knowledge to creators of knowledge. And as the Minister of Education of Panama, my friend Lucy Molinar, so eloquently said, we do not only want to consume, we want to be part of the process. Thank you, Chair.
And thank you very much, Ms. Levins, for your presentation and for the work carried out by your department. Your report, combined with the presentations by our guests, illustrate the benefits of investing in human capital and highlights the tools and partnerships the OAS has developed over the years to maximize its resources and outreach, all in benefit of our countries. Before now open it to the floor, I'd like just to ask the Executive Secretary if she would have any comments to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to take away time from the delegation, so I'll just make a very few remarks. I think, as Director Levins pointed out, the OAS Human Development and Education Program is one of the longest standing that we have within the OAS, which basically underscores, I think, the commitment that member states have to this whole issue of building human capital and investing in their populations for development. I think as we look at SETI today, what we're seeing is something that Dr. Marmolejo responded to in dealt with in his presentation, because we recognize that if we are going to be able to serve member states, and if we're going to be able to deliver in the areas which they have deemed a priority, we as a Secretariat have got to adapt, reform, and innovate. And I think that's what we're seeing in the Department of Human Development, Education, and Culture. Director Levins talked about some of the things that we're doing online. We are moving away from just being strictly academic scholarships from the regular fund to really developing a broad range of partnerships throughout the Americas with institutions like the World Bank, and Dr. Marmolejo spoke to that, with institutions like MIDE in Mexico, with other universities and with governments. And we're finding that these collaborations and partnerships actually do help in very significant ways. Number one, it strengthens our capacity, because each institution that we work with has their own experience, their own expertise, their own capacity, their own network. And two, it helps us expand the outreach and the impact of the programs that we have organized and elaborated and are in the process of implementation. And then the third thing is, we feel it's very important to maintain an ongoing process of engagement and consultation with member states. At the end of the day, what member states need in terms of your own national development frameworks, agendas, and priorities, that has to inform our own thinking in terms of what we're offering. I think all of you have heard me say this on many different occasions. We have great ideas within the Secretariat, absolutely. But at the end of the day, what we do has to serve your interests. And that's one of the reasons why, for me, having this kind of discussion in the context of the Inter-American Council for Integral Development, getting the perspectives from outside experts who are working with us, who have observed our programs, who have also programs of their own, helps inform our thinking as a secretariat. It can perhaps nourish your own thinking as delegations, but it gives us an opportunity to have a very open discussion about the issues under review, about how we move forward and about how we serve you better. I think Dr. Marmolejo and Dr. Singer, both in terms of looking at this issue of human capacity and human development and education, and making the link between that and all of the other areas of development, sustainable development, economic development, social development, and looking at this as a pillar on which all of these things are built, and without which we would see a great deficiency, I think is important. And our investment in education and human capacity is really about helping to define the future, helping to build a knowledge society, and moving our countries forward. So I am looking forward to hearing your feedback, because I know all of you in this room have your own particular ideas and perspectives that you want to share, and we're here as always to listen, to learn, and to respond to what you share with us. And thank you to our two experts. Your presentations were both brilliant, and thank you, Dr. Levins, as well, for your participation.
Thank you, Ms. Strauss. I'd now like to open the floor to delegations that wish to refer to these presentations and reflect on the role of the OS that is playing and should play in the capacity building. The idea with these substantive CD meetings is to bring outside experts with different perspectives and ideas, so that their presentations, in conjunction with the Secretariat's report, trigger our dialogue as we begin refining our thoughts on the role the OS plays and should play in development. And with that, I open the floor. Colombia, the floor is yours.
Gracias, señor presidente, señoras y señores representantes permanentes y representantes alternos de la organización, señora secretaria ejecutiva de Desarrollo Integral, señores panelistas invitados el día de hoy, muy buenos días a todos. Mi delegación quisiera empezar por agradecer al señor Marmolejo del Banco Mundial y a la señora Singer del Museo Interactivo de Economía de México por sus excelentes presentaciones. También a la Secretaria Ejecutiva de Desarrollo Integral y al presidente del CIDI por traer a esta reunión ordinaria del CIDI un tema de tanta importancia para el desarrollo de las Américas como es el tema del capital humano. En este contexto, mi delegación quisiera aprovechar la oportunidad para compartir con ustedes información acerca de un foro que tendrá lugar en Colombia en el mes de abril, el 23 de abril de este año, y que logramos organizar gracias al trabajo conjunto que adelantamos rápidamente con la Secretaría de Desarrollo Integral y a una experiencia exitosa que Colombia retomó de nuestros colegas y amigos mexicanos del Tecnológico de Monterrey. El foro se denomina Talento Humano 2021, la transformación global de negocios y el talento humano en Colombia. Es un evento que está patrocinado por la Cámara de Comercio Colombo-Americana, que se organiza en estrecha colaboración con la Organización de los Estados Americanos, con el CEDI, como les dije, nuestra misión permanente y la Universidad de los Andes en Colombia. El foro se realizará el 23 de abril, como mencioné, y tomará como punto de partida los resultados del estudio Talento Global 2021 realizado por Oxford Economics. Este interesante estudio analiza los cambios de la economía global y el entorno empresarial que están impactando la oferta y la demanda de talento de capital humano a nivel mundial y las competencias que están buscando las empresas hacia el futuro. Como ustedes saben, en respuesta a los cambios globales, la mayoría de empresas están realizando unas iniciativas estratégicas de transformación que requieren capital humano con nuevas competencias. El estudio Talento Global 2021 identificó 4 grupos de habilidades que son las que las empresas están demandando. La primera es habilidades en el manejo de negocios digitales. La segunda es un pensamiento ágil y la capacidad que tengan las personas de enfrentar escenarios múltiples. La tercera característica son las habilidades interpersonales y de comunicación. Y la cuarta, la capacidad que tengan de operar a nivel global las personas. Los cambios demográficos y las mejorías también, como se mencionó aquí en las presentaciones, en el acceso a la educación están generando un mayor número de personas con educación superior, sobre todo en los mercados emergentes, o sea, muchos de esos están en nuestros países. Según datos de este estudio, ya el 54% de los egresados universitarios vienen de los mercados emergentes más grandes, muchos de ellos en América Latina. El estudio, pues me refiero a nuestro país porque el foro lo estamos enfocando hacia nuestro país, señala a Colombia como uno de los 10 países en los que habrá una mayor oferta de talentos y de capital humano preparado para el año 2021. Por supuesto que hay muchos de los países que de la OEA que están aquí representados también incluidos como aquellos proveedores de talentos a nivel global. En el foro que realizaremos en Bogotá lo que buscamos es analizar los desafíos y las oportunidades que presenta este escenario para Colombia. Y el análisis obviamente lo hacemos de manera tripartita. Vamos a tener participación del gobierno colombiano, representado por su Ministerio de Educación, la Cancillería y otras entidades. También del sector privado nacional y el sector privado también, como ven, de la Cámara de Comercio Colombo-Americana y otras empresas también de otros países que operan en nuestro país. Y asimismo de la academia estará la Universidad de los Andes y otras universidades importantes en Colombia y contaremos con el acompañamiento de la Secretaria Ejecutiva de Desarrollo Integral en este ejercicio. Vamos a tener un diálogo sobre cómo mejorar la articulación entre precisamente el sector privado, la academia y el gobierno para nosotros poder enfrentar los retos de la formación del talento humano, en particular teniendo en cuenta esas nuevas competencias que se están demandando a nivel global, a nivel del sector productivo de las empresas. Para las empresas, pues el talento humano es esencial para la sostenibilidad de sus negocios y para la competitividad, pero más aún, lo más importante es que juega un papel esencial para el desarrollo del país. Como lo mencionó el señor Marmolejo del Banco Mundial en su presentación, existe una relación evidente entre educación, desarrollo económico y desarrollo social. Para concluir, Colombia espera que este foro contribuya a la identificación de acciones concretas que fortalezcan la formación y el manejo del talento en Colombia y nosotros estamos muy honrados en poder invitarlos a ustedes y contar con la participación de ustedes, además de al final del ejercicio poder compartir los resultados a través de la Secretaría de Desarrollo Integral. Nosotros les haremos circular una agenda de la reunión y una invitación que ya de antemano les estamos haciendo para que nos acompañen. Muchas gracias. No me refiero al papel de la OEA porque ya tomé mucho tiempo para mi intervención. Gracias.
Thank you, Colombia. I'd like to offer the floor to Mexico.
Gracias, señor presidente. En primer lugar, deseo agradecerle a usted haber convocado esta reunión del CIDI para abordar un tema de fundamental importancia para nuestra organización, invirtiendo en el capital humano. Y las presentaciones que aquí hemos escuchado, todas ellas muy interesantes, nos ayudan, creo, a poder identificar el trabajo que puede hacer nuestra organización para favorecer, impulsar el desarrollo de capital humano en nuestros países. Quiero empezar por tomar las palabras pronunciadas por la secretaria ejecutiva, la señora Sherry Trost, cuando menciona como parte del cometido de la Secretaría Ejecutiva la de adaptar, reformar e innovar la OEA en los temas de desarrollo con el propósito de invertir en capital humano. Estamos viviendo una etapa muy particular de nuestra organización, en donde tenemos que seguir avanzando e identificar en dónde están nuestros valores agregados, las áreas de oportunidad en donde la organización puede brindar una mayor contribución a sus Estados miembros, y un área, sin lugar a dudas, lo es la de invertir en el capital humano, pero desde luego creemos nosotros con una visión pragmática que pueda rendir frutos de manera muy concreta a los Estados miembros y a su población. Así que compartimos esta idea de modernizar la manera en la cual se abordan en la OEA estos temas, más allá de ver a la organización como un simple gestor de becas o de cursos o de talleres, salir hacia los otros actores y los otros socios para conjuntar esfuerzos y de una manera distinta poder encontrar las oportunidades de promoción del capital humano. Y aquí todas las presentaciones que hemos escuchado, señor presidente, han sido sumamente interesantes. Empezando por la presentación del maestro Francisco Marmolejo, que mucho agradecemos, porque sin lugar a dudas nos permite ubicar en el justo lugar en donde se encuentra nuestra región en el mundo, por lo que respecta a desarrollo de capacidades humanas y necesidades de educación, con el propósito de ir cerrando la brecha de desigualdad que desafortunadamente caracteriza a América Latina y al Caribe. Pero por otra parte también queremos agradecer y felicitar a la doctora Silvia Singer por su magnífica presentación. Yo soy uno de esos visitantes al museo que usted dirige, y debo decirle que cuando efectivamente, al enterarme del museo y al ver que se trata de un museo interactivo, cometí uno de los errores que usted ha mencionado, y el de haber llevado a mis hijos de 11 y 8 años a visitar el museo, pensando que como era interactivo era un museo para niños. Y ciertamente, como usted lo dice, la enseñanza de la economía está dirigida a un cierto sector de la población por el simple hecho de que se requiere una edad para entender conceptos y procesos. Los procesos económicos asociados a la vida diaria de los seres humanos. Pero la manera en la cual el museo está hecho es de tan fácil acceso, independientemente del grupo de edad a que está dirigido. Está diseñado para que todas las personas puedan tener un conocimiento muy accesible, sin tener para ello que requerir de alguna escolaridad mínima. Está diseñado para todo el público, de tal suerte que mis hijos pasaron un momento muy agradable, y disfrutamos mucho nuestro recorrido por ese magnífico lugar en el que se encuentran ubicados. Han hecho un trabajo sensacional de adaptar este edificio del siglo XIX a un museo, combinando arquitectura contemporánea y todos los recursos tecnológicos al alcance para explicar los procesos de la economía. Realmente hago una invitación a todos los colegas y amigos: cuando estén en la Ciudad de México, vayan al centro histórico, visiten el MIDE, saldrán, creo, como mis hijos, gratamente impresionados por lo que ahí se enseña, de cuestiones de economía básica, simplemente de la compraventa de las mercaderías, hasta explicar procesos muy complicados. Recuerdo una exposición en donde nos hacen un recorrido de cuál es el camino que sigue una transacción electrónica. Hoy en día es tan fácil llegar a cualquier establecimiento, entregar una tarjeta de crédito y pagar con eso un bien o un servicio. Eso tiene todo un proceso detrás, altamente sofisticado, que nos conecta alrededor del mundo a distintos actores. Y eso, recuerdo, es una de las cosas que está una manera muy sencilla, muy fácilmente explicada en el MIDE. Bueno, no quería hacer un anuncio una publicidad del museo, ya la doctora lo hizo, pero sí menciono todo esto para rescatar algo que me parece de sumo interés para nuestra organización. Y es esta disposición que ha mostrado el museo de poder celebrar un acuerdo de cooperación con la OEA y para poder llevar una exhibición muy concreta, Capital de Ideas, en una exposición que pueda ser transportable de país en país y poder de esta manera diversificar una experiencia que ha sido sumamente exitosa en México, poder llevarla a otras partes de nuestra región. Celebro mucho esa disposición a compartir estos esfuerzos, va precisamente en la línea a la que hacía mención de las capacidades de la OEA de poder encontrar formas innovadoras de desarrollo de capital, más allá de las tradicionales, y para ello echando mano de las capacidades ya instaladas en nuestros países que puedan servir de utilidad para otros países. Eso lo celebramos muchísimo. Y concluyo agradeciendo también la presentación de la doctora María Levens, que nos ayuda muchísimo a entender en dónde está el trabajo hoy en día del Departamento de Desarrollo Humano, Educación y Cultura. Lo encomiamos y alentamos a que el departamento siga trabajando en ese plan de ruta que ustedes se han trazado. Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, and you certainly have convinced me to visit the museum. And I'd like to offer the floor to Dominica. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, just to begin by thanking yourself and the Secretariat of CD for this session. I think coming just a couple of days after we almost exhausted ourselves discussing human rights, it is sort of refreshing to shift to capacity building. Mr. Chairman, I missed the first presentation, so I'm not going to make any comment on this, just to simply request whether we can have transcripts of all the presentations so that those laggards and people who came late like myself could really benefit from them. I was, though, very impressed with the second presentation, which dealt with the question of finances. And my question, the question I would like to ask, and I think it's Ms. Singer, is how have you handled the question of greed, which for me is one of the issues in finance, which has really gotten not just individuals, but really the global community in quite a bit of problems and trouble. I would really love to see how that matter was dealt with within the context of your exhibit. To Madam Levens, who is always very excellent in terms of her presentations, and I think we are quite fortunate to have her here. I just want to get a sense as to how you feel we should take off as countries in terms of developing our human resource capacity. I think we've spent quite some time with individual scholarships, but I am always seized with the challenge that countries face in terms of developing their human capital. And I wonder whether each country is not unique in terms of its human capital needs. And to the extent that we can agree that each country is unique, whether a review, a sort of analysis of the human resource and capital development needs, human capital development needs of each country is not something that we need as a preliminary exercise before we begin into the minutiae of developing a strategy for capacity building. I say this because, as I hinted at earlier, scholarships are a critical aspect of human resource development, but they tend to have personal and individual benefit more than, I'm not saying they have no spillover in terms of the economy. They do have. But at this time when I think we are a little more urgent, busy in terms of pursuing national development, it may be that we need to be a little more deliberate in terms of our capacity building needs. And I'm trying to find out what is what are cities' views on this strategy, whether it is not something that we should pursue together, OAS and certainly individual countries, in terms of developing a strategy, a sense as to where we are. If, for example, you want to pursue energy, is there a link? Is there to be a link between the goal of the country in energy, the goal of the country in agriculture, and its capacity building needs? Thank you very much, and congratulations to all the presenters that have heard. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. If Suriname and Canada don't mind, I'd just like to allow perhaps Ms. Singer and Ms. Evans to give some response to the Ambassador Dominica's sort of queries. Ms. Singer?
Muchas gracias. Ambassador Hubert Charles from Dominicana, thank you for your question, because this is precisely the kind of question that allows me to explain a little how we are envisioning the content of the museum. Greed and the high percentages that the banks charge for their services in my country are so obvious that we use. That's a very good example. Let me try to explain how we do it. First of all, we respect the visitor's experience. We don't need to tell them that there is a greedy attitude, or that the amount that is charged for the amount the banks charge for their services in their credit cards or other services is high, because people live this on a daily basis. They know it. They've heard about it. So we need to respect that, and we need to acknowledge it. This has to do a little with another issue that is very important in our work, which is credibility. When you go into a regular museum and you see a label that says that this is, I don't know, a vase from such culture, from such date, you don't doubt about what is written in the label. And in some studies that have been carried out several times around the world, museums have a credibility beyond the written word, beyond what is written in newspapers or in books, and not to speak what is said in television or radio. So we have to acknowledge and we have to honor this credibility. How do we do it? We do it by precisely giving the last word to the visitor. So if a visitor provides an opinion that says, I've been robbed, or I feel robbed, or I feel totally uncomfortable because my bank is charging me in my credit card a 40% interest rate annual on my debt, we just acknowledge that and leave it in the video recordings that they leave in the museum. If it is said in the middle of a session, we agree, we respect it. We don't need to say it because it's in people's minds. There's another example. We have a very successful exhibit, which is the market simulator. In 3 rounds of 3 minutes, 2 groups of 10 people each. Some are vendors, some are buyers. They learn what is offer and what is demand without a single label, without a single written word. And by the end of the experience, inevitably, they talk about the harm of monopoliums. So we don't need to put a big sign in the room saying monopoliums are the worst cancer we can have in order to get better prices and fair trade. They come up with the idea. What is important is to respect this idea and to acknowledge this idea and do not try to diminish the importance of this idea. And the second strategy we do is that we provide in the museum many simulators. So you can play the simulators even with your real data. So you come and you put the data from your statements, your bank statements. If you're coming to do one of these sessions, we recommend that you bring your bank statements if you have them. And you can put the real data from your statements, and after the simulation is ended, we can give you some recommendations like tear down your credit card, don't use it. Not put it away, break it down, throw it to the trash. Whenever you pay your credit, the bank will be very happy to give you another one. They don't mind about you breaking down your credit card. And we really say this with a lot of confidence. And we say this even with banks sponsoring this work. Because it's important for people to understand how to manage their money and how to take care of themselves. And this is how we gain some credibility amongst our visitors. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Ms. Swing. And Ms. Levin, would you like to try have a shot at your reply?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I will, of course, limit myself to the human resources because this question goes beyond my responsibilities. That is something for my boss. But let me limit myself to the human resource part. Some weeks ago, a big company entered my room and say, listen, the government of a certain country in the Americas, one of the smaller Central America countries, they allow us to start mining in the country, but there are no experts in the country whatsoever. There is absolutely no knowledge, and we cannot even hire local experts to help us to go into the mining process there. Mining would have, the government of that country decided to go into mining without having the experts. So what we did, and that is what the OES is doing all the time, is we have a big pool of partners, companies, private sector companies, universities. And what we did is we brought them together and said, listen, if you need to develop your country, you need knowledge about the sector that you want to develop. It starts with having a university or a high school or a secondary vocational school where you train people. It starts with the government officials having access to knowledge that is all online and all in the rest of the world. A lot of expertise is available. There are experts all over, but most important, for the sustainability of that particular country, it was important to start their own mining school of mining. And that's what we help them to develop. Not by the OES itself, but one of our partners, Minas Gerais in Brazil, was able or willing to help this small country to set up a mining school and to keep training people locally so that the company finally could start their mining activities. So when you speak about national development, it starts with the country itself that decide, of course, in which direction they go. But the OES, yes, we can help. We did it, and we are doing it all the time. At this moment, we have at least 4 countries who took a loan with the Inter-American Development Bank, who came to us and say, listen, we have a lot of problems to execute the program. We have the money, we are 2 years behind in the execution, and it is all about knowledge. And we and the OES are able to bring the knowledge to the table to help them to develop the program. And that is what we call in my department the capacity strengthening unit, who's helping our member states that request for, is looking for help. Thank you.
Colleagues, as Chair, allow me to make a few comments on the question that the ambassador posed, even though I could get myself in trouble. But what I would say to this, that each country certainly has a right to identify, I think he mentioned in one particular case, maybe energy is the thing for them. And I'm sure that if they put incentives in place and let it be known that energy is really where this country needs and whatnot, that the youth and other people will capitalize on that. You don't need to sort of lead them any more than that. People, I have a strong belief in market forces. And if people believe that energy is where the action is, you will see people getting into energy. The one concern that I do sort of have is what I would call perhaps the possibility of too much meddling by governments to this extent. Imagine you have a government that decides they want to do something, and they try to, what I would not want to see happen is that they try to influence their position within the OAS, because I think that students should have the capacity to apply for scholarships and get in on their own. Because if you leave it too much to government officials, then you get all kinds of things happening. One, I think it takes up time of the government, which I don't think is needed. Secondly, you then get favoritism. Some person approving something to get it to the OAS may be a cousin or a friend or whatever. So I personally think it's good for the government, of course, to identify things, but that the process is better handled to the free market system. Thank you, and I now pass it to Suriname.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And also thank you for convening this important meeting with a theme that is so timely and central to the sustainable development of our countries and region. It is timely too because it fits within the current deliberations of our organization to advance the developmental pillar of the work of our organization. The delegation of Suriname appreciates the comprehensive presentations done by the speakers today, and particularly for their perspectives provided regarding the importance of investing in human capital. It is imperative that in the 21st century, almost all our countries are being faced with challenges regarding, amongst others, the appropriate approaches, extent, and engagement of stakeholders concerning the question of investing in human capital. My government shares the view that addressing human resource development at all levels, investing in education, in professional development of teachers and educators, streamlining skills and technical knowledge with the needs of the labor market, and bringing about positive and possible reforms in the educational system of countries are factors of relevance to human capital development. It is our view that addressing human resources and labor market are of particular importance in our 21st century. In our view, our organization can contribute to the furthering of our quest for social development of our countries and region. In consideration of the differences in social, economic, cultural, and political circumstances of our country, of our region, Suriname is of the view that in order to formulate an integrated approach, it could be of relevance to conduct a study whereby some major issues or questions can be addressed, such as what are the human resource challenges that we face in our countries and region? What education, human capital, and labor market reforms have recently been implemented or are underway to address these challenges? What mechanisms and information are being used to assess whether intended reforms, including educational reforms, are meeting our objectives? In which manner have all stakeholders been engaged in this process? And which actions or recommendations can be put forward as short-term, medium, or long-term perspectives? The government of Suriname considers cooperation at the regional, sub-regional, and international level as very important, and recognizes that the OAS is fulfilling an important role in advancing integral development. We think that partnerships with various international organizations, as well as with the private sector and academic institutions throughout the region and beyond, are complementary to the efforts of our organization. We think that the Department of Human Development, Education, and Culture has been providing a constructive role in advancing our agenda. Mr. Chair, the government of Suriname is committed to advance sustainable human development. In this regard, I would like to mention that my government, in its policy statement of 2010-2015, has emphasized that the human being is at the center of all developmental activities. It is our view that investing in human capital implicates investing in health, in education, in housing, and the overall well-being of our population. We think that technological innovation, technology adaptation, and creation of jobs are also some of the relevant elements that could further this goal. My government is also of the view that linking education to human resource development is key to raising productivity in different sectors and eventually for accelerating growth and social equity as well as equality for our country. We consider an educated workforce as an essential element in this process. Currently, the human resource challenges has already motivated relevant reforms in support of our national developmental agenda. Mr. Chairman, Suriname will render its support in furthering the efforts of our organization for making investments in human capital a prominent goal within its pillar of integral development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Suriname. And I'd like to offer the floor now to Canada.
Thank you, Chair. Like many other delegations that have spoken before me, my delegation would like to begin by thanking the Chair and for SETI, the Executive Secretary, for maintaining the rhythm of discussions on what are clearly very critical and interesting integral development issues for the region. This continues to be a very vital and interesting forum for exchanges, and it's been very instructive to be here and listen to the different presentations of the experts and the comments from other member states. My delegation would like just to briefly share some quick observations, certainly that we've observed in today's exchanges. First of all, that there is a wealth of information and data available to the region through very well-equipped institutions such as the World Bank. We saw that today in the information presented on the overheads. And of course, I think as the ambassador for Dominica requested, if that information could be shared, that would be helpful. But just the depth of information available out there, I think, is quite encouraging. Also, the extent to which there has been a lot of effort put into innovative approaches to sharing and conveying information that can be quite complex. The museum presentation was among the more vital and engaging presentations that my delegation has had the opportunity to experience in a town that is full of museums, and certainly would like to underscore the fact that it actually makes economic issues sound exciting, which I imagine is quite hard for many of us to imagine, but so kudos and to signal that point. Just to pick up on some other key points, another issue that I think was underscored in the presentations and the comments is very critically the emerging role that the private sector is playing in development in the region, and obviously a very important partner that this institution has to keep in mind when we're deliberating what can be done or should be done regionally. My delegation took heart from the presentation from Ms. Levins that pointed out that increasingly the institution, certainly in its education investments, is adopting an RBM approach. It would be useful to know to what extent the kind of information that is available, for instance, that the World Bank had presented to us today, is helping to influence some of the decisions around investments that the OAS may be taking. Which brings my delegation to another point, and I think this has been, again, a very useful forum in which to hear about the very different and well-equipped institutions that are operating in certain sectors. And one of the questions I was going to ask, and again, Ms. Levins did a really good job of illustrating it, is the various and distinctive roles that institutions in the region play when it comes to fairly complex issues. And I think these fora, these presentations, would benefit from having that kind of insight built into the presentation. So as delegations, we get a better sense of how the different institutions differentiate their levels of engagement on some of the issues. And again, I thank Ms. Levins for giving us an example of that in her response, where she separated or distinguished the role that the OAS Secretariat was taking vis-a-vis what the IDB had made available in terms of loans for member states. And I think, again, to pick up on one of the comments from the ambassador from Mexico, a very vital realization that we're in a process of increasingly focusing and making decisions, hard decisions oftentimes, around how the OAS should invest its scarce resources, and bearing in mind the distinctive roles that the institution can play and is playing is always helpful to bear in mind. And just to respond to, or I think to perhaps address the questions about research and analysis, I would wonder if the bank representative might be able to tell us if, in fact, there may already be a wealth of information out there that has captured some of the needs from an education and needs level for countries. And perhaps the larger issue is, if not the sharing of that information, this institution using the fora that it has to perhaps ease or help guide some of the political discussions that may need to happen on those issues. So in closing, Chair, again, my delegation would just like to thank you and Ms. Tross for these discussions, these exchanges, and we certainly look forward to future such discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Canada. I'm noticing that there's no more requests from the floor. I just wondered if any of the presenters wanted to make any closing comments. Anyone?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Well, first of all, I want again to congratulate all of you for dedicating time to discuss this critical issue, and then in responding to the specific comment from the delegation from Canada, I'd like to say a few things. First of all, that I think you are on the right path by placing education as a critical part of the concept of integral development. I think it is a very good approach, and I really congratulate the Organization of American States for doing that. I think you are on the right path. And certainly my intention today was to try to share with all of you my sense of urgency of seeing that it is required to do a lot of work, a lot of coordinated work in the very, very short term. And I'm very pleased that, again, you are also equally concerned about this as a critical element for the future of the region. And certainly both the World Bank as well as, in this particular case, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development have been conducting a variety of studies to try to address some of the critical issues in terms of an agenda for the human capital development strategy for the Americas. I'm aware of the recent study that was released in Colombia. In fact, I was part of the team working on that report. We did something similar in Chile. We had a similar report in Dominican Republic. So there are a variety of countries which have requested the World Bank and OECD to work with them in analyzing sort of at the deeper level what are the challenges associated with the issue of capital development, as well human capital development, as well as what are the specific recommendations that for those countries may exist. On a regional level, certainly there are very common issues for the Americas. First of all, the issue of expanding access to higher education is and will continue being critical for the future years. And that's where I believe it is important to share and to collaborate. We have the case of Canada, with the highest access rate in the Americas and one of the highest in the world. And then you have the case of other countries in the Americas which have among the lowest in the world, and certainly in the region. So the issue of access, expanding access to higher education is critical. The second one is the issue of equity, because access by itself doesn't help if it is just helping the better off in our societies. And we have many countries in which, unfortunately, still there are very regressive policies for admission and for access to higher education, which I think it is important to address. The second one is retention in higher education. It is not a matter of just opening spaces and then assuming that students will survive and someday will leave. We need to do more efforts in improving the retention of our students in higher education. And the second one, of course, is the issue of quality and relevance of education. All the studies that have been conducted in the region show very clearly that there is a huge gap between the perceived needs of the economy as well as the employer sector and what higher education institutions are providing. That leads us to the need to study in the Americas the issue of the efficiency of our higher education systems. Unfortunately, still in the Americas we have many higher education systems in which we are still based on the concept of memorization of concepts rather than in discrimination of information and many of the soft skills that are required in today's global economy, knowledge-based economy. And then there are other elements that I may mention: more technology, more flexible higher education systems, of course the issue of funding of higher education, which is critical, and I will end just by mentioning that the need for more collaboration. And I believe that the Organization of American States has a very important role to play as a convener of countries in helping the policymakers in our countries and the institutional decision makers in our higher education institutions to recognize that it is in the best interest of the whole region to address these problems from a regional perspective. It is not their problem or our problem. It is not their reality or our reality. I think it is the need to develop the concept of a shared challenge and also shared opportunities. If I was able to contaminate you on the sense of urgency in terms of the need to work much more and faster in this region in comparison to others of the world, I think that I have fulfilled my goal. And of course, the World Bank is much more than ready to collaborate with the Organization of American States on this enterprise. If, as the delegates from Suriname had mentioned, there is a decision to further study this element, to further analyze what are the major challenges, what are the lessons learned, and what are the recommendations, we will be much more than delighted to be part of this reflection, which I think is pretty much needed in this region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marmolejo. And I think Ms. Evans just wanted to make some remarks there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick remark. Using your studies of the World Bank and using the different consortia in the world, we are busy in Latin America and the Caribbean with a program within the framework of capacity strengthening to get much more PhDers in the universities in Latin America and the Caribbean, based on changing the universities in the research-based institutions. The Association of European Universities the Association of OES Universities, and the OES itself, our Capacity Strengthening Unit, there is a program developed for strengthening universities, and some support for Caribbean colleges who want to transfer from college to university. So that is just to inform you that we are on that path, but using your studies, of course, and as I said, our collaboration will be much more stronger because we have to keep on doing much more research, and the World Bank is very strong in that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Levens, and I'll give the final words now to Ms. Singer.
I want to thank you all for your kind comments and just give a final idea to all of you. I think that in order to invest in human capital along the region, we need to think of the other ways of education which are not necessarily formal education or higher level education, but a type of education that goes beyond schools, that is available to all, and that is precisely done in a very interesting way by interactive museums, and which is what I really thank you for giving me the opportunity of explaining to you. It is certain that MIDE is willing to share the experiences, but we are also sure that there are other experiences developing in your own countries that it would be wonderful to share with. We don't think that we are the only ones. There are many people, other people in other places that probably do not have the luxury of having an institution like the one that we have developed, but that are also developing interesting strategies for communicating the value of the knowledge society and the knowledge economy. And we would like to share those too. I am certain that equity will be achieved and supported if we deliver open opportunities for all. If we open this window of interest among people in society. We need to use the most advanced techniques and instruments and strategies to deliver our message and awake the interest in people. So it's not just a situation in which you, we, us deliver to the others who do not have the knowledge, but people should be stimulated and should be willing to receive this new information in order to make a better use of it. So this is why I think that these interactive methods are very interesting and allow us to do that. So I hope we can work together on these, and that in the future you would be interested in advancing this topic with us. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank all the member states for their comments and suggestions. And based on what has been said here, I would like to propose that CD, first of all, thank Ms. Singer and Mr. Marmolejo for their contributions and to our dialogue, and also request the Secretariat to distribute their presentations as soon as they're available. I'd also like to take note of the presentation made by Ms. Levens and to request that her presentation also be distributed. And finally, to request the Executive Secretary to continue informing Member States on new partnerships developed in the area of human development. If there are no objections, it's agreed. Agreed. We can now move to item 3. We continue now with the order of business that's included at the request of delegation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. To make a presentation on this request, I'm pleased to offer the floor to the delegate of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and good day to everyone. Mr. Chairman, the delegation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines would like to thank you for obliging our request to bring this matter before the CD. Distinguished delegates, by way of background, the matter which we bring for your consideration refers to the loan that was made to the OAS scholarship training programs by the scholarship training program, to the OAS. We refer you to a resolution that was passed by CD October 2011. Also a resolution passed by the Permanent Council, also in 2011, authorizing the loan of $3.7 million from the OAS Capital Fund for the Scholarships and Training Program for the purpose of satisfying separation packages which the organization was obligated to pay. You may recall that when these resolutions were passed, the scholarship program was the only fund that was available to effect the loan. And in those resolutions, this council agreed, as did the Permanent Council, that the repayments would be made to the scholarship fund in 5 equal successive annual payments, beginning in 2012. The delegation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines has been concerned by discussions that have been taking place within the CAP to the effect that those payments cannot be effected for this year. There was no indication at the time that budget discussions took place last year that there would be a problem making the repayment. There was no such indication at the time that the budget was passed, in fact. And so this is something which I think deserves the attention of the CD, to ensure that the mandates which we agreed to in this organization are adhered to. They're not optional. We heard this morning the presentations by the 2 experts, one from the World Bank and one from MEDA, about the importance that education, human development plays in nation building in our hemisphere. We cannot allow the scholarship program to be compromised. In fact, our delegation is a bit concerned that whenever there is a shortage of funds in this organization, the first fund that we're ready to dip our hands into is the scholarship funds. And we have to keep the Secretariat accountable and to ensure that the monies are repaid in the manner which was agreed. That is to say, by virtue of the resolutions which we have passed. Our delegation would also like to remind distinguished delegates that we have instruments at our disposal, namely Articles 104 and 105 of the General Standards, which authorize the Permanent Council, which the Permanent Council can use to authorize the Secretary General, to effect transfers within chapters and between chapters where funding is required. In fact, that's the very same instrument that was used in the resolutions that we had passed to take money from the scholarship program to fund the separation packages. So this is an instrument that is available if it is that they do not have the money readily available that was allocated for the replenishment of the scholarship funds. We can get it from somewhere else. The General Standards allow the Permanent Council to authorize the Secretary General to do that. Just an observation, and something for further consideration, is the fact that last week, when we had a meeting of the Permanent Council, in the Inspector General's report, it was revealed that $69 million in unsubstantiated medical costs was discovered. $69 million. And they're unsubstantiated, which means that they must be repaid. Or somebody might go to jail, I don't know. But that is money that the organization is potentially sitting on, and that is money which we, the delegation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, would ask that accountability be given and consideration be given that that money be used to replenish the capital fund. Mr. Chairman, we're asking that this matter be fully discussed in the CD and that some agreement or resolution be made in terms of the way we approach this matter, whether we get it to the Permanent Council so that we have the assurances by the Secretariat that the resolutions which were passed by CD, by the Permanent Council, mandating the repayment of the scholarship fund be repaid. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, St. Vincent Grenadines. Before I open the floor to delegations, I'm pleased to give the floor to the Secretary of Administration and Finance so that they can give an explanation regarding the repayment of the loan to the Capital Fund. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Good morning, distinguished delegates. In regards to the repayment to the Scholarship Capital Fund, the Secretary for Administration and Finance made a presentation to CAP on March 4 regarding this repayment, and it reported to the CAP that the General Secretariat paid its first installment of $740,000, which is 1/5 of the $3.7 million, at the end of 2012, with resources allocated in the regular fund budget of the Department of Human Development, Education, and Culture, and also proposed in the Secretary General's proposed budget to follow the same procedure for 2013. So that has been presented to CAP. Any plan to redistribute the annual repayment of amounts of $740,000 in any other way would probably require modifications to the approved budget, and thus reopening negotiations on the distribution of the already approved program budget. But the Secretariat has proceeded with the first payment in 2012 and also is scheduling to have the second one in 2013.
Thank you very much for your comments. From my knowledge, I would just like an understanding of this just a little better here. You have a capital fund which is for scholarships, and that's where the funds came from. Is that correct? The funds originally came from the Capital Fund, which relates to scholarships. Now, what you're telling me is that a loan comes from de facto the educational scholarships side of the OAS. It may come from a different pocket, but it's all leading and discussing education. It comes from the pocket of the Capital Fund, but that's specifically for education. And now, so that was a loan made. And now you're telling me that the repayment is de facto coming from the same group that made the loan. So, as I understand it, I make a loan and I'm getting repaid from myself, which I don't really think is the intention. I don't know if I'm missing something here, but I'm seeing that I have a body, I have a left side and a right side, but it's all education, and then funds comes out of the fund of capital for the education, and now instead of it being repaid from other areas of the OAS, which I imagine that the educational side could also contribute something, that all of a sudden all of the funds are coming from de facto the educational scholarship program in one way or the other. Is that how it actually has operated? Yeah.
The capital fund, the scholarship capital fund, it's a separate fund that was created several years ago. On the annual budget proposal, there's a proposal as to how to execute the annual budget of the regular fund. And in that proposal presented by the Secretary General is reviewed by the member states, and they present an approval. The funds that came for the repayment of the first amount of $740,000 came from the budget allocated to the Department of Human Development, Education, and Culture in 2012.
Yeah, I think you've answered the question, but it is exactly what I've said, that I make a loan, but I'm getting repaid from my own pocket. So that's just a little unusual method of a business. But I'd now like to offer the floor to St. Vincent Grenadines.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. You have stated it most accurately, and that is the bottom of what St. Vincent and the Grenadines wants to get to today, which is why we are still compromising the general scholarships program, because we're not getting the money from somewhere else. We are robbing ourselves, and we want a clear answer from the Secretariat for Administration and Finance as to how we as an organization can go about honoring the mandates that were agreed to without using methods that really, it seems on the face of it that we're being paid back, but we're not. And so we want proper accountability for this matter. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, and I offer the floor to Dominica.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, there is no question that this is a very serious matter, and I'm pleased that my colleague has brought it to the floor. I am not too sure that we can sit comfortable with the response that has been provided, because all you have indicated is that the original loan has actually been increased by $750,000. It is still, I'm not sure what type of accounting that is. I'm wondering whether, Mr. Chairman, we should request the Secretariat to explore very urgently other options for making this payment. And I'm certainly glad that the payment has been made, because the payment was made as a result of a resolution of the General of the Council, and as such, ignoring it is not going to set a sensible precedent. So at least I'm glad that it has been paid and effort has been made to repay. But we are not sure that it has in fact been paid, and in any case we are concerned that a program that we all agree is critical to the functioning of member states should again be raided in order to make this payment. I think something is not quite right. So I join in requesting that this matter be given additional thought. At one stage I was simply going to say that if the first payment had been missed, then we need to determine how we are going to quickly make the first payment, the second payment in 2013, and so on and so forth. But the payment has actually been made, but not sure that it has actually been made. So, Mr. Chairman, I will be pleased to support the move to give this further thought, to request the Secretariat to come back to us and give us a clearer sense as to how we are going to demonstrate to all and sundry that this human resource development program, whether we're talking about the capital fund or we're talking about the regular program, that these are indeed important to the organization. Certainly from, as of now, the indication that they are simply is that they are simply sources of funds to bail out the organization rather than to promote human resource development and capacity building in the organization. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Dominique, and I'd like to offer the floor to the Bahamas.
Thank you, Chair, and my apologies for our delegation's late arrival. My delegation would like to also note our serious concerns with respect to the potential non-payment of this year's annual repayment to the Scholarship Capital Fund. We support St. Vincent and the Grenadines' proposal that this matter be adequately discussed and ventilated within this committee with a view to making the 2013 annual repayment as mandated by the General Assembly resolution. We do not find ourselves satisfied with the explanation provided by the Secretariat. Thank you.
Thank you, Bahamas, and I offer the floor to Honduras.
Gracias, señor presidente. Esta es la segunda vez que me toca estar en una reunión de este tema. Estuve la primera vez en el tema en la CAP. Yo quisiera que alguien me aclarara, por favor, por ignorancia que tengo, ¿por qué este es un tema del Caribe? ¿Estos son fondos del Caribe? ¿Son fondos designados para becas del Caribe? ¿Por qué ningún otro país lo mira como un problema o lo viene a exponer aquí? A donde voy siempre es el Caribe. ¿Alguien me podría explicar si es que es exactamente eso, un fondo para becas del Caribe o es un fondo para becas de la organización? Solo para que me aclaren y así tener una mejor visión de qué es lo que se discute.
I mean, I'm quite sure that it is for the entire organization. It's not just the Caribbean. The OAS is not Caribbean. So, if I can offer the floor now to Mexico.
Presidente, coincidimos totalmente con la respuesta que acaba de brindar a nuestro colega de Honduras. Este es un tema de preocupación para la organización en su conjunto. Agradecemos, sin embargo, muy cumplidamente a la embajadora de San Vicente y las Granadinas por haber traído este tema a consideración del CIDI, porque creemos nosotros que el tema debe ser suficientemente abordado y solucionado. De otra manera, no estaríamos honrando, por una parte, los compromisos adquiridos al momento de celebrarse el préstamo, pero más preocupantemente, la manera en la cual el tema de becas debe de ser solucionado en esta coyuntura, pero también en el mediano y largo plazo sobre el rol de la organización. Así que agradecemos mucho a San Vicente y las Granadinas por haber traído este tema. Sabemos que también ha sido ya motivo de discusión en el contexto de la CAP, pero tal vez no suficientemente resuelto. Y creemos nosotros que el tema merece ser ampliamente debatido, tanto en la parte financiera, administrativa, para saber en dónde fue el origen, los términos del préstamo, la manera en la cual se va a pagar, pero también la manera en la cual hoy en día la OEA cuenta con ciertos recursos para poder avanzar sus proyectos de becas. Es importante saber cuál es el estado en el cual se encuentra el fondo de becas en este momento y los compromisos que se tienen a futuro. Tenemos también en puertas una futura próxima negociación sobre el techo presupuestal para el proyecto 2014, y creemos que es indispensable tener una idea muy clara de cuál es el estado financiero de las becas, porque será un elemento fundamental en la discusión del tema en su conjunto. Agradecemos mucho la presentación, la respuesta que nos da el funcionario de la Secretaría de Administración y Finanzas, pero ciertamente parece ser insuficiente para entender la dimensión del problema. Por lo pronto, lo único que podemos como delegación expresar es nuestro apoyo a las delegaciones que han traído este tema a la mesa para que el tema sea suficiente y satisfactoriamente abordado, y solicitarle a usted que en una próxima ocasión pudiéramos traer una vez más a discusión este tema al CIDI, con toda la información relevante, tanto la que corresponda a los orígenes del préstamo, 2, la evaluación de la CAP sobre el préstamo, y 3, el análisis de la Secretaría sobre el estado actual de financiamiento de las becas vis-a-vis el préstamo que nos ocupa. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mexico. And I offer the floor now to the Dominican Republic.
Gracias, señor presidente. Simplemente para agradecer a la embajadora de San Vincent y Granadinas por traernos este tema aquí a esta sesión del CIDI. Y no sé, escuchando la explicación de la Secretaría, lo que me surge es, tal vez fue que el presupuesto del Fondo de Capital el año pasado lo subieron en $740,000 con relación al 2011. Escuchando esa explicación no nos quedó claro, pero buscándole una lógica a la situación, esa es la respuesta que podríamos encontrar. Pero al parecer no es así. Creemos que este fondo, respondiéndole un poco a Honduras, no es un fondo del Caribe, es un fondo de todos los Estados miembros que ha sido disminuido considerablemente en los últimos años. Y es muy preocupante lo que está ocurriendo, de que el mismo cada año se ha debilitado a nivel, sabemos que se ha eficientizado con la variación, con ciertos mecanismos de buscar becas en otros países, pero la realidad es que se va disminuyendo en cuanto a los recursos existentes. Y esto es muy preocupante para nuestra delegación, y en ese sentido agradecemos nuevamente a San Vincent y creemos, como han expresado otras delegaciones, que el tema se debe continuar analizando este tema en el marco del CIDI a más profundidad. Gracias, presidente.
Thank you very much, Dominican Republic, and I offer the floor to Canada.
Thank you, Chair. My delegation would also like to thank St. Vincent and the Grenadines for having flagged with this Council concerns over the resolution, or the addressing the resolution that was passed. I would also like to thank the representative from SAF for having provided an explanation of the payment that's already occurred and the intention to make a further payment. I would like to echo a point that the SAF representative made, that the intention to pay was captured in the program budget. It may not have been so evident. I brought a copy of the budget today, and on, I think it's page 140, it does make a reference to a repayment of the capital fund through the Department of Education, Culture, etc. So it is an issue that clearly merits further debate and discussion, and our delegation would certainly echo the Mexican delegation's recommendation that further discussion be had at a further meeting to get a more complete sense of the picture that we're dealing with. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Canada, and I offer the floor to Barbados.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to all colleagues. This delegation would just like to express its thanks to the delegation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines for highlighting a point which is of central concern to all delegations here. Mr. Chairman, this topic was discussed in the CAP, but I think when we sit in CAP, we sometimes focus on things from the number side, but this council is indeed the policy arm for development, and such items require full ventilation here at the political side. And I think it speaks to the topic being discussed this morning, speaks to a point which was also raised by the current chair of the CAP, that there still remains a critical need for a full policy debate on the vision and the priorities of this organization. This subject has been discussed peripherally for several years. And if the question from Honduras is an indicator, it shows that there's a perception of integral development, there's a perception specifically of scholarships, which needs to be corrected, because it was an honest question which stemmed from what currently holds as a perception. The perception is that scholarships is a Caribbean issue, and obviously it is not. As we have heard from this morning's discussion, issues of human capacity, human development are pan, or shall I say hemispheric wide. It is not a Caribbean issue only. While the Caribbean countries may emphasize this as one of their priorities, it is a concern and an area of focus for everyone. So to get back to the point which I was originally trying to make, this delegation therefore would like to stress its call, or reiterate its call, for a policy debate, not only here, but in a permanent council, on the vision of this organization and the things which we think require better focus. And obviously integral development and capacity building via scholarships certainly must be at the top of that discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Barbados. And I'll offer the floor now to St. Kitts and Nevis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our delegation would also express thanks to the delegation of St. Kitts and Nevis for bringing this very important topic to this body. There are obviously very gray areas surrounding this matter and require clarification, and we would also like it to be fully addressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, St. Kitts and Nevis. And finally, Haiti, the floor is yours.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Et de façon tardive, je vous remercie d'avoir ramené cette thématique à l'agenda du jour. Nous avons eu de très bonnes présentations ce matin et qui, normalement, voudrait dire que l'organisation met le cap sur le renforcement des capacités humaines, mais la délégation qui est mienne est un petit peu inconfortable par rapport à cette situation qui prévaut entre les délégations et le secrétariat. Et nous remercions la délégation de Saint-Vincent et de Grenadines qui a apporté cette question à l'agenda du jour. Je pense que une issue favorable et satisfaisante à la question serait nécessairement une bien meilleure façon de clôturer une si belle journée avec de si belles présentations. J'espère que le secrétariat va prendre note et nous donner les explications et une solution qui soit acceptable par toute l'organisation. Je crois que ce sera dans l'intérêt aussi du secrétariat que la perception des États membres soit positive, parce que en fait le secrétariat travaille à la satisfaction de ces États membres. Je crois que ce point est fondamental pour tous les pays de la région qui est mienne, de l'organisation en général. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Haiti. There are no more comments on the floor. I'd like to thank delegations for their comments. It seems that some delegations will require some time to perhaps get some further instruction, but in this regard, I would propose that we send the consideration of this item to the Committee on Policies so that it can discuss the effects that repaying the loan from the budget of the Department of Human Development, Education and Culture has on the scholarship and training programs, and presents a report and recommendations back to CD as soon as possible. I take it too that it is necessary for the overall organization to meet and discuss their priorities in greater detail, which has been discussed but has not yet been fully implemented or fully discussed. And hopefully this can all be done before the General Assembly. I'd like to ask delegations if they're in agreement that we proceed with this proposal. No comments? So agreed? Agreed. And finally, item 4, we have come to the end of this meeting. And before closing, I'd like to ask delegations if there are any other matters they would like to wish to bring to the attention of the Council. I think I see Panama. The floor is yours.
Gracias, señor presidente. La delegación de Panamá quisiera compartir una información con los miembros que este día de hoy nos acompañan en esta sesión sobre la celebración de la segunda Conferencia de Seguridad Turística de las Américas, que se celebrará en la ciudad de Panamá del 13 de mayo al 17 de este año en curso. El Ministerio de Turismo de Panamá ha compartido esta información con los diferentes sectores, tanto gubernamentales como privados, para que se participe en este evento. El evento tiene como finalidad conocer el impacto de la seguridad en el turismo, establecer el marco conceptual de la seguridad aplicada a destinos y empresas turísticas, identificar y conocer en el marco del sistema turístico las distintas variedades relacionadas a la gestión de la seguridad de un destino turístico, así como unificar y homologar criterios, actuaciones y proyectos. Se estima que participarán aproximadamente 500 expositores, 500 delegados en el ámbito de la seguridad de los locales turísticos que puedan impactar sobre el sector público y privado. Así que quisiéramos reiterarle que exhortar a los estados de participar en este evento. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Panama. There being no items to consider, I'd like to remind that the next meeting is scheduled for the morning of Tuesday, April 30th. The last meeting before the General Assembly will be devoted to finalizing the work of this year and receiving and considering the reports to be presented to the General Assembly. This meeting is so adjourned. Is it?